All right, live is working. Good morning. Welcome to EmergeAgency and LimeLite Audio and Media's social media, where Angela and I are here to have some candid conversations and hope to pay some lessons forward for our beautiful friends in British Columbia who are having a trying time, and we've been there. We're going to take a moment as we wait for people to join us to do a little bit of an introduction of who we are. We were on here last week chatting with kind of day one of our conversations. Welcome to option number 2. And we just want to have an opportunity to connect with you today. So we're going to start with a bit of introduction. So I'm going to pass it over to my beautiful friend Angela to just let us know a little bit about who you are and what we're doing today.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. So my name is Angela Groeneveld, and I'm the founder of EmergeAgency, and I've been consultant for business coaching, personal coaching, economic development for many years. I've been an entrepreneur for many years and mostly rule in BC and Alberta. I'm actually in BC right now. I drove down last night to Kimberley, BC. This is my home grounds down here, Cranbrook, the East Kootenay area. And I'm heading over to Kelowna tomorrow. I hope to tour some of these spots and meet some people and get a little more feel of things on the ground and knock on some politicians' doors. That's my goal. But I was the business renewal officer for High River in 2013. And I've been specializing in disaster recovery since 2013. I've been involved in international to North America to just right in Alberta disasters since then. And my goal is to pay forward lessons learned. High River is went through exactly. I served in that area for over 6 years. It took us to do and to get into phase 3 recovery. And I'm also was involved in the Fort McMurray fires as well. And a friend is hit pretty bad down there, and she knows that I have this skill set. So she reached out to me, and I didn't even hesitate to say I'd like to pay it forward. So I want to introduce Jody because she's a great friend of mine, and I got to know her really well through the floods because she was a influencer, community leader in communicating, and she's continued that as well. But she connected the dots for a lot of people of what was going on during the flood, and I'll let her further introduce herself. But I just want to thank her also for volunteering and doing this too.
Yeah. Well, Angela, you gave me the call. Gosh, would it have been 2 weeks ago, maybe now? I still have no concept of time since 2013, really. And COVID hasn't helped that. But you gave a call and said, would you help me administer some conversations to help people in BC? And without a doubt, it was yes, because, and we'll hear from this with our special guest we have joining us later, is once you've gone through a natural disaster like this, there are so many people that help you along the way. And it may not feel like that for BC right now, but trust me, it's coming. Is so many people help you along the way that you have no idea how to repay the gifts that you were given through that time frame. So if we have an opportunity for me to push some buttons on social media and bring you conversations that help you through this, I would do it in a heartbeat. So my role back in 2013 is I was the morning show announcer on a local community radio station. So my role was delivery of information, updating, keeping people connected, and through different phases of recovery had sort of different changes in what that role would look like. I left the radio station probably a year or two after the actual flood we had in High River to deepen my role into community engagement. So we had funding that we had from the Red Cross that allowed us an opportunity to build what we call disaster recovery in the community. And so my background is a lot in emergency social services, mental health programs, and connecting communities. So that's sort of the role that I have in the background, and will kind of help with that a little bit. So hopefully that makes sense.
I also want to note that Jody lost her home in the flood, and it was a long time for her before she got in. So she really, really understands. And then she also served and worked in the community. I also was affected by the floods in a small way on our farm ranch east of High River there. But so we get it. I want to share that part as well, is that we understand exactly what you're going through today, right today. And our special guest, do you want to talk about her a bit, or do we want to wait? Or
no, let's bring her right in. So Karen is a really good friend of mine who we've been friends for years, and we were talking the other day about these conversations, and I was kind of quizzing her brain of, what else can we tell people from things that we learned from what we did. And Karen and her family were affected by the flood, obviously also living in High River. And Karen, she'll explain, had a really cool way about going about getting advice and help. And when we were talking the other day, she just started banging off like, you should tell them this and this and this and this. And I was like, no, you should tell them this and this and this. And so I said, will you please come? And just like anyone from the community was like, I would love to help pay that forward. So we'll bring her up here. We'll move her to the top. And welcome, Karen, to our conversation today. And thank you for being willing to talk. And I say willing because I think I want to be realistic to everybody who's going through this process. Is it's really freaking hard, and it's really emotional. And even for us 8 years later to jump into these conversations brings up a lot of emotions. And so I know today too that, Karen, you are willing to pay it forward, but I know it also, it's a little triggering for us when we have these conversations again. And you're probably going to see, eyes filled with tears in my own mind when this happens, because we know exactly what it feels like. So I appreciate you taking some time to kind of relive what happened in 2013 for you.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start with, we know that our friends in British Columbia are right in the middle. We're what, Angela, a month
yeah,
in?
I just confirmed. So we're going to say that evacuation was ordered on November 14th. So we're just going to round it up and say that they're close to a month since the evacuation.
So Karen,
that's the state.
Take us back to, if remembering back, and I don't know if you remember timelines because they are all fuzzy for me at all, but some of the first things that you did when you were faced in this situation. What did you do?
Well, I remember being allowed back into High River about 2 weeks after the flood, and that's when we could start doing something. So that in itself felt good. We could start moving forward. I remember being very, very overwhelmed, going through days like, I don't even know what to do next. I have to cook for my family, but I don't know what to make. So I think I would say it's okay to be in a daze. It's okay to be like, I'm not going to do anything today because I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do next. So that first month, for sure, I don't remember much. It was just very overwhelming.
Karen, where did you stay? And when you were evacuated from the house, where did you stay that first 2 weeks before? And did you live in your house when you got back in?
No. Our basement was full of water. We had 6.5 feet. So the day we got back in, we gutted everything, tore it all out, cleaned, sprayed everything down with some anti-mold, whatever materials. But we didn't live in our house. We were out for 81 nights. I remember that number because we were gone for 81 nights. We lived actually at my in-laws that whole summer.
Did you have offering to temporary housing? Were you offered Saddlebrook housing there?
I don't think we even looked into that because my in-laws were in their trailer. They gave us the whole house to have for the summer. So we didn't even have to live with my in-laws. They're lovely, but I think that would have been difficult. But we just could be a family and live in the house. So I'm so thankful.
How did you know that your house was safe to go? That's something that Jody and I talked about. What I'm worried about right now is everybody's going in to clean. And it's contaminated. These are contaminated houses. They had a quick assessment done that you're coated this color, so they're going in. And I know there was so many side effects and after effects of the mold that came back. And how do people know if that house is clean enough or safe enough to go into?
So we lived in a bungalow, and so our entire basement was full. but we took everything out, including studs. It was down to bare concrete, and we didn't even think about rebuilding for 9 months. So it dried out completely. I mean, it was very difficult. We moved back middle of September. So after about 3 months, we got a furnace and a hot water tank put back in, but we didn't do anything with our basement. It was bare. So I think letting it dry for way longer than you think. I wouldn't be too excited to put studs and drywall and everything back in. That's what I would say. I don't remember sort of testing. We had an ozone machine going for a while. We cleaned everything. We took all of our soft surfaces and, did laundered everything. Took out even our dry pantry items, replaced those. So I would definitely say be safe, be more safe than sorry on all those things. If you think it's not going to be good to use or eat or put on, get rid of it.
Yeah. And that's a hard one, because especially if you're in a place where you're unsure what the financial situation is for you, to think about throwing all the things away. If you're like, well, maybe, but the number one thing, and we said this last week when we talked, is that your safety is essential, and there will be opportunities, I'm certain, for assistance with rebuying back the pantry and the fridge and all of those things. So even though it feels painful, get rid of it, because it's not worth sacrificing health for some cereal. Not even a little bit.
This is where I'm going to jump in and be a little bit of the bad cop to the administration, to people who are responsible for recovering, because my understanding and the messages that I'm getting, the fact that I'm being asked the questions I am means that there's a gap in somewhere in this recovery, that people have nowhere to live right now. So they can't get into their homes, or they haven't cleaned them or got the water out yet. So where are they supposed to live? Winter is coming, and then they don't have any money. And that's what the topics were for today. So I'm disappointed. I'm going to be straight up, that we're a month in and that people are saying they don't have somewhere to live. And that is the job and the responsibilities of the politicians. They need to be making this a priority, and they should at least be communicating a plan right now. So any of you residents that are listening, that get noisy now. The government's there to serve you. That's their job. They're there to use your money, your taxes, and you need them now. There is many provinces that have tapped into the federal disaster recovery program. And that is what I managed and used for 6 years. So I also was in the Emergency Operations Center, where not a lot of people are allowed, but that's where day 2 of the evacuation, I was in there and I watched the plans get unrolled, and I watched the provincial government sit there and manage it. So a little bit on that note is, I asked Jody to, do you know of any links and stuff? I've been looking, and she spent some time, her own time last night, to research, because we wanted to share some links, and she couldn't find a lot. And that disappoints me as well. And I want to be really straight up about that, because it should be very easy to find answers, and it shouldn't be coming to me. So we're going to pay forward what we did in High River, that there was one-stop shops for information, and they were communicated to our local radio. They were communicated to our local politicians. Our mayor was doing daily live talking, and then he was going down to weekly. They had a special emergency meetings, but things were ticking and cleaning. And Jody, do you want to just share a little bit of what you found and what you were looking for, what you Googled? And then Karen, I want to touch back on insurance after on that.
Yeah. So I was just taking a quick boo at, because I think a lot of the support that came for me, for example, like my house was in a different section of town than Karen's was. So we didn't get back to even look at our house till almost 4 weeks after flood time, because ours was in a fairly big underwater section that they had to figure out solutions for. And so a lot of support in our community came from what are called NGOs, which are non-government organizations. So I took a quick boo last night online, just Googling like NGOs, British Columbia, flood support, and not a lot came up through that. And so I see on websites like Samaritan's Purse that they have a section dedicated to collecting donations for response for BC. And so that's interesting to me. There's a section for North America for another group that was here called World Renew, but they're also based out of the US, and Tennessee and Kentucky got hit with some pretty nasty tornadoes yesterday. So I'm curious what their sort of response into Canada is going to look like at this point. Disaster aid, which looks like it's ran by the Rotary in British Columbia, looks like they have some supports that could be coming your way. And then there's a disaster response alliance that is set up with the Canadian Red Cross. And I said this last week, is that the Canadian Red Cross is really great at that initial emergency response. And I appreciate like wholeheartedly, because I went to their tent and I got their cleaning supplies and I got gift cards to go get food and to buy some clothes because we had nothing. I appreciate the Red Cross's role in that, but the Red Cross was difficult, challenging to work with in long-term recovery response. So that's why we talked a lot last week about if you can donate to something local in your community and a local organization, manage donation funds, because you're going to need help accessing that. So the people that are falling into the gap people need that local support. And so there are NGOs that are going to come and help your area. Without a doubt, I know this, but I don't know which ones and when or how that looks, because it really wasn't clear in any of the research I did last night.
Yeah, thank you for that. Jody, remind me, I am going to touch on Red Cross. I've done a lot of research on it, and I am going to speak to that today, and about because money is crucial. Like an essential tool to recovery right now for everybody is finances. But Karen, while we have you on here, I'm nervous because a lot of people have already cleaned up. A lot of people have already done major repairs. And from the business recovery side of it, I watched this on a commercial basis because they were phoning their landlords, or if they owned it, they were like, get it cleaned up, get it going because I need rent. And then that's their livelihood. And I literally was watching electrical panels coming out of drywall, falling out. And you've probably heard some horror stories from the people that cleaned up too fast. Could you share why not to clean up too fast? And if you have done repairs already, what they should be looking for from your experiences or what your neighbors' experiences were?
I think for us, we didn't feel the desperation of needing rental income or needing to get back into that full space. We had people, looking after us, my in-laws with their house. So we didn't feel like we had to get back in and get it all put back together right away. So I know not everybody is in that same situation to have another place to stay or whatnot. I think for us, it was just being so overwhelmed with it. And that just froze us. It felt like we had to make another decision, and that was too much. And so I guess it was just the reason we didn't move fast is because we couldn't. We were just frozen.
Mm-hmm. When you were sharing with us before we went live that you had a friend that had been through a disaster previous, and you called that friend and was like, what do I do?
Yeah, so I have a friend, Jessica. She had been through a catastrophic fire in her house. It burnt the whole thing down. Probably about a year or two before the flood. And I remember reaching out to her and saying, you have gone through this. What do I do? How do I figure out what stuff I lost? How do I deal with insurance? And she was so wonderfully blunt about things. She gave me like a step-by-step list. She said, the first thing you need to do is go through each room in your mind and say, okay, on that shelf was these 7 board games, and that box of Lego, or we had young kids at the time. So it was, and our basement had, the kids' toys and the TV and the DVDs and games. And so it was just walking through your house in your mind and listing everything from that room. And then she said, take that list, organize it in, whatever, clothing, household items, Christmas decorations, games, toys, and give a chunk of your contents list to someone else to figure out how much it would cost to replace the game Sorry, how much it would have cost to replace Trouble, this movie, this many Christmas decorations. And so I did that. I think I probably had 12 or 15 people, my mom, my mother-in-law, my sisters-in-law, and they each took a chunk of the list of our contents that we lost in order to provide to, insurance and disaster recovery people what we lost and what it would cost to replace. And that helped so much. I think we had maybe 800 separate items on that list, and it probably could have been tightened up a little bit, but to have to research 800 things to replace, it was like, I can't do this. And so I had people help me, and they were very willing to do, 75 items, research that for me. And then we put it all together and provided it to insurance. So that was a piece of advice from this friend who had gone through the fire. And so if there's somebody you can reach out to ask questions, what do you do next? Do it. I'm happy to be that person if you want to reach out to me.
Oh, thank you, Karen. You will be. You're going to regret that. No, there are so many people. I think, like I said, we had 3,000 views. The last one, a lot of questions coming in. And today, of course, anybody that's listening, please put your questions in there. Jody's watching that if you have any. For the people who didn't have in-laws to move into, and you felt rushed to clean up, that is why it is crucial that there's temporary housing, especially with winter. I have said there's connections. We had ADCO and Sprung. I've already reached out to ADCO and Sprung. They are ready to go. They're ready to talk. So there's no excuses in my mind. If you got to fly it in, if you got to drive it over, I know the roads are bad or whatever, but I've seen this stuff flowing in. And I was responsible of building a temporary business park. It was the first one. If you Google temporary business park, you'll see all the work that was done there. Our downtown is gone. We need to get people back up to work and going, and we want to rebuild safely, properly. Also, there's a lot of insurance concerns going on. We also had a lot of damage on the infrastructure out of the streets. So we built a temporary business park. I don't recommend this, but I recommend you have temporary solutions in place. This was a lot of money. The mayor and I, we laugh about it now, but the fact is that we reacted and we got something up and going, but he speaks to it a lot as a politician, and I speak to it as administration a lot of what to do better. So if any of you are listening, please reach out to me if you need a temporary business community created, because we know how to do it, and Sprung will have it up in under a month is when we had it. I think it was usually a 90-day deployment. So there's no excuses at this time of there should be something available if your home isn't. There's resources here, and then there's all of us here to connect you to people to help you have the answers to whatever situation you are in right now. And that's from a volunteer base. So thank you, Karen, for that. Did you ever feel unsafe in your home or worry, like going down the road? Like, did insurance say to you, you're signing off here, I need to know that, because what I'm worried about is people are rebuilding back on floodplains. And then I'm also worried that they are rebuilding and they haven't had a conversation with their insurance person to say, do I qualify? What's my premium? What's my deductible going to be? Do you have any thoughts around all that?
Yeah, I don't really remember, them saying you have to sign off, you're on your own. But I don't really remember anything we did to make sure it was safe. I think my husband is a firefighter, so, having experience with, sort of disasters and emergency response, I think he definitely is calm around having to make decisions. I'm very thankful for that because I'm generally not terribly calm. I struggle making decisions when I feel overwhelmed. And so he definitely was like, nope, let's just take it slow, one step at a time. And so I think that's generally the best way to go, because you don't want to do anything that is going to lock you into something. I feel like we did make decisions slowly, because like I said, we were overwhelmed, but also I think Dan, my husband, he helped just bring the level of anxiety down, and just, we're okay. We can figure this out. We had a lovely insurance adjuster who cried several times on our behalf because she was so sad for us and the whole entire town. I'm sure she had other, flood clients, but I don't remember feeling pressured to move back in, to sort of sacrifice safety.
Well, I think that's because you had somewhere to live.
Yes, for sure. And I know not everybody has that. Even people who lived in the temporary housing, I know that's not ideal either, but at least it's somewhere.
Yeah, we had so many donations coming in, and I got a bunch of farmers and trucks and stuff. And I remember, Jody, I think you helped promote this. We created a Christmas over in that temporary business park, and the toys and the Santa, and trying to bring some normalcy to those families that had lost everything. And so I'm thinking this time of year is always hard. And I feel for everybody in BC right now. And it takes corporate social responsibility. It takes volunteers to help these people out that have nothing at this time of year. And, how many parents are having a tear when they go to sleep and knowing that Santa's coming in 2 weeks time. And yeah, there's lessons forward on that. Jody, do you want to comment at all on that?
Well, and I think too is just allow yourself some grace in this time period. That is this Christmas going to be the best one you've ever had in whatever your success comparison scale of Christmases is in the entire world? Probably not. But remember that you're alive, you are safe, you are together, and you have love. You have so much freaking love. And I know that doesn't feel as great because you can't go to the bank and be like, okay, like I've got love, I'm going to trade it for some cash. And it feels untangible at the moment, but those are the pieces that are going to get you through, and connecting with other people. And finding you have to redefine what it looks like for you in the next 2 weeks. And I know, because if you're parents, and it's the parents who are worrying about the holiday the most, you are amazing at being a mom and a dad and a grandparent and whatever else. And you are going to make that Christmas so special. There is no doubt in my mind. It's just going to look different, and different is okay. And I think too, in, hearing Karen talk about like itemizing the list and all those things, you also do not have to buy back everything you owned just because you once owned it. And that was honestly, like Karen, you could probably speak to this. That was a big lesson, because you're just like, but I used to have an Instapot, and I used to have a slow cooker, and and I want all of those things. And friends, you are going to learn through this process that stuff is stuff. And it can wait over there, and you have the rest of your life to get back the things that you want to get back. And in the plus side of that is maybe you get to get a better version of it than you did before. Like, you don't have to have grandma's slow cooker anymore. You could have whatever. And just in the grace piece of that is knowing, I think the other thing that just really comes to mind is that cry over the stuff if you want to. Mourn the stuff if you want to, because I think in these processes we feel silly that we're crying over inanimate objects, but they also meant something to you. So it's okay if you need to take a minute and cry about the objects. I still cry about objects once in a while, and it's 8 years later, because you're just like, oh man, remember that? There's some of those irreplaceable things. But please allow yourself the space to feel it and move through it. Because if you just toss it over here and toss it over here and toss it over here, it's waiting for you. So I feel like that was another piece going through it is, I don't know how much we dealt with the things, when we went through it. It kind of hits you later, and we'll have, because Angela we will have a billion more conversations about what that looks like as we move through it. But again, just please, like, don't rush to put a house together because you feel like you need to make Christmas the same Christmas it was last year. I'm sorry, but that Christmas doesn't exist anymore, and it's time to build a new one. And I know that probably feels gross. It makes me feel gross to say it out loud to you, but it's the reality of it. And what can we do? And if you need to brainstorm, it might sound like, okay, I'm trying to deal with insurance and life and I'm adulting and blah. But if you need to just brainstorm, how could we make Christmas fun, unique, special? Maybe you just need to tap into somebody else's brain on that. Reach out to us. We will brainstorm, right, Karen? Like, we could probably be like,
started
this. Like, we can help you find fun, cool things to do.
We started some new Christmas traditions the Christmas of 2013, and it's lasted this long. We've pared things down. Doesn't have to be as fancy, and that feels really good to start new traditions. So I would totally recommend that.
And I want to add in there, if any of you that are not affected by the flood and you want to pay forward this time of year, that was the spot I was in. We had a home and our children were spoiled rotten. So we took it as an opportunity on Christmas Eve, instead of going to church and being full of all that overeating and all the drinks, everything, we loaded up and the kids worked that night and they watched it. They delivered kids with lesser than. And I, as a mother, standing back and watching their faces and seeing them volunteering, and that is the tradition that we started of giving back every year. This year, there was a situation in our family and it was, the kids didn't even, no presents, no nothing. Like, let's just give the money back. Let's go to that. And so for you that are out there of like, how can I help these people? This is a way you can, and turn it into the meaning of Christmas, not the act of Christmas. Maybe teach the meaning of Christmas and help these people with lesser than right now. Okay, Karen, watching you talk, both of you, your emotions, it's so brings you back.
We have a few question conversation pieces coming in, so I'm just going to throw that up for a moment. Are you okay to hang out with us for this part, Karen? Or?
Totally.
Okay. So Paulette is saying that the insurance is telling the majority of residents that only overland water insurance is the only coverage. They waived the deductibles, so the amount of the insurance companies completely destroyed houses is $12,000. Also, they're passing the buck onto the government and telling us to apply for disaster relief fund. What can we do about this? Do we need to contact lawyers?
Well, I'm sure I'm going to go first on that one from an administration side, because my role was to bring in all the insurance companies and we did a round table with them. So for you people in the recovery situation, responsible recovering, that's what I did. We had too many problems like this. So we had a town hall where all the representatives of the insurance companies, one representative came, and you have to do this with security. You have to do this with someone very controlled as the host and the MC, because it can be very heated. We had a minister attend, our municipal affairs minister attended it. Doug Griffiths, you actually can watch on YouTube how he has to be protected to leave, because we did have deaths happen and so someone needed to be blamed that day. But it was very important. So set it up. But that was, I don't know if you guys remember, at the Highwood School, and everybody went around and talked to the insurance people to say, what are the concerns here? So that is number one, because we need to hold these insurance people accountable. A lawyer is going to cost you money on there. So first of all, try that to work with your emergency operations people, your recovery people, to say, get this in place and hold them accountable to it, have them speak to it and explain it. And yes, that is what the government is for. Disaster Recovery Program, DRP. The feds have pools of money, and that money is contributed down to the province that needs it, and the province then allocates it out to the local government's needs. This is why, if you don't feel that you are being given answers or a plan, because the people do need time to make a plan and time for a budget. This is a major disaster. This is infrastructure and communities all in one place. So I can advocate and lobby these guys, but I feel for them as well. This is big money that we're working with here in BC. But this is where the citizens can, if you don't feel satisfied, this is where you form your task force. And it's run citizen. There's no rules. There's no boundaries. I've talked to a few communities of how to do this. Try to work with your government, local government. Don't do it from an anger or hate spot. Be there to support them. In High River, we had the Planning and Renewal Advisory Committee. You can actually Google it, and you'll see what their mandate was, what their responsibility was. And then in Fort McMurray, it was the Fort McMurray Recovery Task Force Committee. And they lobbied the local government, and they lobbied the local, like they were the citizens' voice. So you guys probably remember these guys on there. But I'm feeling a month into this, I'm going to be straight up here, that the citizens need to start. You're asking questions like this. The government should be releasing a disaster recovery program as a gap filler right now. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you are more educated in that scenario than I am by any means. I don't know. And I feel like I want to say, like, all the other provinces right now that are watching this happen, don't just watch it and make a plan. Like, I'm surprised that there's not a plan ready to roll out in BC. I don't know why when Alberta went through it, all the other provinces didn't call up Alberta and say, hey, what did you guys do? We got to build a plan. Like, every other province in this country right now should pretend you're going through it and make a freaking plan. I don't know.
Like, it's mandated.
Bad cop today because I'm angry that they haven't done that yet. And I don't know what those answers look like, Angela, but I know that you've worked with the players on these teams, and it's possible. Like,
and it's government mandate. They have to have a business continuity plan. Like, it's the municipal government acts that they have to have one, and they have to have one provincial, federal, everywhere. And the programs, and they should be tested once a year, in my opinion. Like, it's Alberta Emergency Management, there's BC, and I'm watching it all in BC right now. I know for a fact that they are putting a plan together and that they are in action. What's happening is they're dealing with safety first, which is infrastructure. So what I don't understand is, what are their priorities? What are they working on? And that is because lack of communication is happening right now, in my opinion. So remember, this is just my opinion too. So if there's politicians watching this and I get it wrong, I'm sorry, but educate me. Use this as an opportunity to correct us right. If we're not saying things right here, or we don't have it, here's your chance. 3,000 views, right? Yeah. So there should be a communication plan of what they're working on to give you all hope.
Yeah. So Paulette types back in that disaster relief is available. It is what the insurance companies are telling us to apply for. So I guess that's maybe the next step for people, is just get applying for this relief option and what that looks like. Lisa says, if people put their homes back together quickly and mold comes, or there is problems with renovations, do they have resources available to help them redo or repair when they're done? People are hustling to get dried out because winter's here and they have nowhere to live. But when summer comes, is there any help for fixes?
So I'm going to explain what happened to this in High River. That's where we're going to pay forward our lessons. 2 communities. If you Google the Hamptons in High River right now, in Beechwood Estates, these were 2 communities that were built up. That
Wallaceville, you mean? Yeah.
What was it? Wallaceville.
Wallaceville and
Wallaceville as well. Once they had to be taken back down, so they had to be sacrificed for the floodplain. So the Hamptons that were built back up, a lot of those homes had to come back down because they weren't built properly. And the insurance companies were, we gave you your money. You did that already. The government stepped in, and the government gave them, like, if you had granite countertops, you were going to the lesser ones. If you had hardwood floors, you were going to lino. They give you bare bones, but they get it built back up. So if your insurance companies are saying, this is it, this is all you have, the only option you have is disaster recovery, is government, or the NGOs, which were World Renew, Samaritans, and we can't find those for you right now. So again, if I have this information wrong, please use this as an opportunity, because people are asking the questions, is where are they? How can people access them? So what happens if this happens in the summer? If you rebuild back too fast, is your insurance going to be there? Absolutely not. From my experience in High River and in Fort McMurray, that nope, you it was buyer beware. You got it on a lot of people build back in areas that are floodplains. So that's a very good question that I really want people who are listening to pause and listen to this, because you have to understand what the flood mitigation is. Because why rebuild back on a floodplain? So that is probably the number one priority in the Emergency Operations Center is, what are we doing with the river? What happens if this happens again? What about the snowfall? Like, are we building the dikes? Are we making the water go this way this time? Insurance companies are waiting to see that as well. Like, what mitigation is going to be there, because then what's your insurance is going to change that. So step one is what Karen is saying today is itemize your stuff, take it down to the studs, let it dry out. You need somewhere to live. You need storage while you do that. Government, that's your job. So the citizens, listen to what Karen said. What Jody is saying is get those NGOs there to help gap fill as well. Once the flood mitigation is understood, what is happening, so you can start to rebuild, because your governments are explaining to you, yes, we're going to rebuild back and we're going to put this mitigation in this place. Well, that's when you can start to do the recovery, because the insurance, and you're talking to your insurance, and all of this will start to move. And there's 3 phases of recovery, and you'll start to move in out of the emergency state into the recovery phase. If you don't get all of this and you just recover and go back and another flood happens next year, yeah, you are in trouble and you are not covered. We learned this the hard way in High River. We did it too fast, and then the communities had to come down. So we don't have much time. I could go on and on forever about that, but yeah, I think I answered that question. What was the question before that? Disaster recovery right before Lisa's.
Oh, the DFA does not cover anyone who does not have house insurance. What now? House insurance in Princeton only provides 10,000 overland flood insurance with a 2,000 deductible for those who have it. But what now? Because there's 2 different scenarios here.
I don't understand. DFA, would that be does not cover?
I'm assuming he's like disaster
funds
assistance. I don't know what DFA stands for either, but
so this 2 different scenarios here means there's 2 different gaps that are happening, and it's a responsibility of the government to fill the gap. It's a responsibility of the government to make sure you have shelter and are safe. So we need to that's the little bit of information that I know right now. I completely feel for you, and just pause. And if you don't have somewhere to live, yeah, you need that temporary housing so bad here, but pause till you get these answers in there. And
yeah, people are saying it stands for disaster financial assistance. That's what they're calling it in BC. Thank you.
What was it? There was a question before Lisa's.
That's the one I just read to you.
And then was there one more before that?
That was Paulette's that we talked about already.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I got them all. Mateus does DFA accept quotes to issue payments, or do people need to pay first and hand in invoices? And that's
yeah. Karen, you're nodding. Do you want to answer that one for the DRP?
I did mention to you guys before we went live that I was so sick of scanning receipts, keeping track of things, sending it in. So, yep, I would say you're having to pay first, keep track of the paperwork, scan everything, email it, save everything, organize it. Yes, it's so overwhelming. You have so much paperwork, but get a file folder, different slots for different things. You're gonna have a lot of paperwork, a lot of payment upfront, and then trying to apply back.
And what they did in High River, the provincial government, they had a $1 million advancement that we used it for some of our recovery was access up to $1 million and with 0% interest. And the government was the collateral to it. So you had that money turned around within 24 to 48 hours, and you did it through your regular bank. And you had to sign an affidavit and all that kind of stuff, but you had access to money right away to rebuild. So that was so important because people could get going and then clean properly. So to the BC government. It's right there, all the stuff that they did with AEMA, Alberta Emergency Management Association. So I don't know. I don't want to. I imagine BC has it, but we should. It's not getting communicated apparently. So, or they don't have it, and they should create it because people are going to need access to money and save every single receipt. This is where I'm going to go on to Red Cross. Red Cross will literally ask you to show your utilities, prove that you've paid rent. And a lot of people go, I'm not even in my house. I don't even know where my special box is. My file's down the river. And they are trying, and you have to understand, it's not the human that's representing Red Cross. It's there's so much red tape. It's such a large organization that they're just following the rules. So they're not bad people in it. And try to remember that as a human, to be as kind as you can, even though your frustration is there. It's the rules that you're angry at. And so when you see my tone up here, it's not Red Cross. It's the red tape to it. So that's why you'll notice on my page here that it showed that Red Cross, look at the corporate sponsors that are stepping up. You are going to see millions of dollars in the BC flood recovery pot. We saw, I can't remember the number, but it was like 40 or $47 million was raised for the floods. We actually had money leave our community that was donated to our community through Red Cross because there was no more to give out because of the red tape with it. So it wasn't the fault of Red Cross. And we went back and lobbied them and said, wait, what about for long-term recovery? And that's when Jody, I can remember being at the management table discussing and advocating for that money to come back to the community, so that there was organizations at his arm length. A lot of them were the non-for-profits because they didn't have fundraisers available for them anymore, and they'd lost their donations and their funders, that this money went into that because that's the third phase of recovery. But what frustrates me is that the money left the community. There was people without. So that is why you should get the money out of Red Cross and get it to the most local fundraising opportunity, charity set up. If it's got to be one of your task force that manage it, get it in the hands of that and get as less red tape as you can on it. People should be literally able to walk down, say, this is what I need, somewhere have some rules around it. And like little ones, like where are we e-transferring this? Or because unfortunately people are going to take advantage of this. There are those types in situations like that. So that's why you have to have some guidance, some boundaries around it, but get it local, get that money out of there and get it local so that it can get into the hands of these people right away.
Well, and I think what I'm seeing in the comments that the biggest gap that's happening right now is the disaster financial assistance. The DFA has sent out letters to residents saying they will not cover you if you don't have homeowners insurance. So people are wondering, can DFA actually deny you that assistance if you don't have homeowners insurance? And if they can, then what are people supposed to do?
I'm completely frustrated. I'm completely frustrated by that. So I can't answer it because I don't want to give wrong advice here. But what I want to support the people on is, what are you supposed to do? So if you have no insurance and you don't have the government helping you, are you now homeless? Are you now supposed to be living on the streets in winter in BC? Is this really what is set up for you? That's incredible to me. So get noisy. Phone the media. They love negative stories. That's what they feed off of. Get noisy and tell your story. Somebody has to be filling this. And these NGOs, if you look on Red Cross right now, and go on my website or on this Facebook page and look at the donations that are coming in from Air Canada and everything. And you mean to tell me there's no money for this person sitting there? That's all I can do is encourage you to get strong with your voice, because I don't know the answers I don't know. I don't know what the solutions are to it, but I'm going to find out. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Not good.
All I can say about that. So we gotta, and I think it's hard because then now people like Dan and that are going through that situation, like how between a rock and a hard place is he and the people in the same boat as him feeling at this moment. So Dan and everyone else in that situation, gosh, like, I know it's not super comforting to say we feel for you, but let's get noisy. Let's get noisy, friends.
Yeah. You need help. It's not in a negative way. I'm not being mean, and I'm not encouraging a hate group.
No,
I'm encouraging people to help people. These people need help. So share this to whoever you think that has some power or some direction to help you. It's
Yeah.
from a kind spot. My tone is because I
Yeah.
want action. That's why.
Yeah. But it's just, I think there's ways to be vocal, and there's ways to get together that's not mean. And again, it's hard. And like, Karen, you remember in those moments when you're frustrated and you're exhausted and you're terrified, right? It's when we're living in our flight or fight response, we are not regulated brain functioning thinkers right now. And that's okay. And so we're not going to speak in the perfect tone and the perfect way. But that's why if you do it together, collectively, you can use everybody's brain power, because it's hard, right, Karen? Like, you remember, like, you get angry and you cry and you're freaked out, but they still are going to listen to you. And it's just trying so hard not to be mean in that moment.
There is solutions to every single one of your questions. There are answers to every single one of your questions. I'm going to do the best I can to find them for you. Jody will. I know Karen will now, because you get this heart. We feel for you. We will reach out to other people as well. But you got to do your part too. As citizens, you've got to advocate for yourself, lobby for yourself. But what I want to give you hope on, and wrap up here a little bit on some closing marks, is you will get through this, and there are answers and solutions to everything, because I've been serving in disaster recovery for 2013, and I've everywhere, and I've never seen anyone go without. Like, short term, yes, but I've never seen anybody ever left on their own. Sometimes it takes time in more communities or more provinces or more countries to come forward with plans. But please know that we are in a wealthy enough country and pay enough taxes that there will be solutions for you. I'm very confident to say that.
Karen, any last piece of info, advice, suggestion that you have?
I would say the biggest lesson that I learned during this time of dealing with the flood and coming out on the other side is that you need to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. If you know somebody that wasn't flooded, ask them to do your laundry. Ask them to have store some things for you. Accept help when it comes. Don't think you have to do it all on your own. Figure it out, because I got this. Just accept the help. Ask for help. It's okay. This is a big enough thing that we have to do it together. That was the biggest lesson I learned, and I will share with you. Just ask for help.
Yeah. And I really like that you say that, because I remember in those moments you feel like, oh, well, someone could be more affected than I am, or is in a worse place than I am. And you deflect because somebody could be worse off than you. But you know what? Your piece of it is just as manageable or unmanageable as everybody else's piece. And so, yeah, just receiving the help and just asking for it. Just be like, today I need you to do this. And it's hard. As humans, we are just like, nope, I'm strong enough. I can do this. I got this. Please don't do that. Lean on each other.
And from a kind place, I love that, because I know that it's portrayed that we are propositioning ourselves for jobs. We're propositioning ourselves in some way, have a different agenda, and we are just volunteers pulling forward. And I don't ever want to be responsible or my name tied to anybody that's in a hate or an angry way. So if you turn this and it does that to you, shame on you, because that's not what I want. I want to motivate you to get answers and do it right in a kind way, and in an impactful way. So you'll get a lot further that way than as administration on the inside. I got attacked on personally, social media. I got a letter written to the editor, all that stuff. It falls on deaf ears. And I know when I go into it, and I ignore it. The ones that I have empathy for and compassion and are rational, those are the ones I'll work with. Those are the ones I talk with. So you will get shut down if you come in that you're off the rocker on it. And if you're off the rocker on it, please remember that what Jody said about the 5, you're having a mental health breakdown, you're frustrated, you need a little bit of help. So don't be afraid to ask for that as well. The wrap up points that I see today are Please listen to what Karen said. Start itemizing everything. Save every receipt. Don't be so quick to rebuild back. Please listen to that. Too many stories. Google it. Google all of this stuff. Education is power. And use that internet. Go on the YouTubes. Watch the stories. Hampton, Beechwood, Wallace. I've given you the names. Look at those communities. Look back at how beautiful High River is, the awards it's won, Fort McMurray, all the events that are happening. You will build back personally stronger from this. Keep that family tight. That's number one. In your community, there's so many opportunities for your communities to build back better infrastructure, which will bring you a better tax base. Now I'm going to get into the economy hat there. But be safe and make sure you understand what the flood mitigation is. Don't rebuild back in a floodplain.
Yeah. So any other questions that pop into your mind, if you're catching this video later and wasn't live with us, please post your questions into the comments. We will see those, and we will, if we don't have the answers, we're going to try to help find if there's some other areas that you're hoping we could have a discussion on, other people we could bring into the conversation. Please post that into the comments, and we'll try to keep these conversations going. So stay healthy and stay well, and best of luck. Bye.
Thank you, Karen, for your time too.
Thanks.